Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership with Ed. I'm Ed McGill, co-founder and partner of McGill Jungie Wealth Management. And we're on our podcast today. And on today's show, we'll be speaking with the great Chad Greenway. So all you pro football and Hawkeye fans out there know Chad from his playing days for the Vikings and the Hawkeyes. We're going to spend a little time with him, though, on his days in South Dakota, 8-man football as well. But also, too, we're going to spend time on some unique things as a father of four and the recruiting that he had growing up, and then also for his daughter. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And wanted to thank everyone who's joined us during this inaugural season of LED on YouTube, Apple Music, and Spotify. And you can catch shows every other Wednesday when they drop first thing early in the morning. So let's now welcome Chad Greenway. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very good. Good to see you, man. Thanks for having me on.
We did have to adjust Chad's camera because he still looks like he can play. Those are his real biceps and shoulders in the view. So he's staying fit and just got off of. There you go. I love that I am not doing that. I don't want to embarrass myself here. Chad, you have this unbelievable story of even getting to the University of Iowa, and so much of this podcast is on leadership. And I think growing up on the farm, when I've heard you speak a couple different times, you talked about some of the leadership you learned while on the farm, and then also just doing 8-man football. So tell us about that before we get, how does a college recruiter even find someone in small town South Dakota playing 8-man football? But tell us about your background growing up.
It's funny, Mount Vernon, South Dakota, population, 368 was on the sign when I was growing up. We played, it's actually 9-man in South Dakota, 8-man in Iowa. 9-man in South Dakota. So that was just what you knew growing up. It was nothing different for us. It was not unique. It was just what we did. There was 11-man, there was 9-man, and I never played an 11-man snap of football until I went to Iowa in my first practice. That was the first time I was ever on a field with 11 guys on the football field, and that quite honestly was weird for me because that was different and unique. Talk a little about my background. Obviously, leadership and captainship and being part of a team has been basically my entire life. And that really started when I was a young person on our family farm. And family of 5, I was the youngest, I have 2 older sisters. Parents are both farmers, grew up on farms, got married right out of high school, and really kind of understood that we had a business, right, family farm, and I got a lot of responsibilities young, like most farm kids do. And I always think it's important, and something I struggle with now with my own kids is giving kids responsibilities or quote unquote chores that don't directly benefit them, but benefit somebody else. And I looking back at my years on the farm, I realized that was my advantage. I mean, that was what farm gave me. And they talk about work ethic and all the things that farm kids have to do, right? Get up early and move pigs and do chores and come home after practice and do the whole thing and feed the cat.
Do more chores.
Yep. So many things to do. But when you really boil it down to like a leadership and work ethic and all those things, you really kind of think about, I was given responsibilities as a young person where I had to do something for somebody else beyond myself. Because as you know, most teenagers, most kids, they're pretty self-centered. It's about them. So I learned that team aspect and doing your role and playing your role in a team really started at that young age, and then sort of formalized at Iowa when I got there. When I started to learn, like, what does leadership look like? What does it sound like? How do you interact with people? Sort of took those sort of things that were native or, sort of innate in me that I was born with and grew up with in the farm. And it kind of came out at Iowa.
Chad, you played 9-man football. What 2 positions were not on the field? Because people are going to ask that. And just tell us how that shaped you as well as just your farm background. Because, both your parents, I think you said when we talked before, got married out of high school, they had the farm.
Yep.
And that shaped so much of who you are. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, 9-man football was a part of life growing up. I mean, small town South Dakota, Mount Vernon's 368 people. I mean, it was just what we knew. The 9-man's different, certainly. For us, we took a receiver off the field and actually a lineman, and we would go off center a lot with the tight end. So it was kind of a unique setup. We'd go one running back sometimes. We actually played in a smaller field, so it was 80 by 40 in most cases. Sometimes you play in a full field as well, but it was pretty unique. And really what it kind of came down to when in small town sports in general was you had to go out for everything. You played basketball, you ran track, you played baseball, you played football, sort of one sport to the next. And being that multi-sport athlete really helped me on the football field as being a better athlete, but also just in college when I started to focus on one. And then my farm background, I mean, I think a lot of people, I definitely equate my success to growing up on a farm. My entire life has been being part of a team, has been being part of, our family farm where I think it's a really important thing for kids to learn is doing something that doesn't directly benefit you. And that was certainly life on the farm. And I think I struggle with that with my own kids right now is we had a big farm of, we raised pigs, cattle, corn, soybeans, we're on the tractors, we're in the fields, we're throwing calves and working them. We're moving pigs in the morning. So, yes, you have the work ethic. You have getting up early and doing chores before school and moving pigs before school. Yeah, you go to school, you go to football, you go to basketball practice, you come home, and then there's still 2 hours of chores left to do, and you have supper at 10 p.m. That was just the life. And when I got older in my life and career, football, you realize, like, what did that give me? Yes, it gave me, to be selfless, to work for somebody beyond yourself, to certainly work hard, that getting up early and getting things done is a priority, but having responsibilities as a young person that didn't directly benefit me. Like, I don't get something from it. Like, to go fix that stretch of fence so we can move the cows there tomorrow and go put that work in and time in, to wake up early and load pigs and get them on the semi before school starts. And yes, you go to school smelling like a pig, and yes, you do all those things, but that's just what the business needed. You realizing when you're kind of working as a small business on your farm, like, you're part of a team, but you're doing something for others that doesn't benefit you. I think that in leadership, sometimes you have to think about that as, like, what's the right thing for the team, not what's necessarily best for me. What's the best thing for the company? What's the best thing for, if I'm a junior leader, Iowa captain, like, what's the best thing? What does our team need right now? So I think I didn't realize how lucky and beneficial that was to me until I got older and said, wow, what did I really gain from the farm? And I think that perspective is really the most important thing.
See, what's awesome there, hopefully everyone wrote that down, that there are plenty of people that do hard work, but you heard Chad say part of the benefit of the hard work and what allowed him to excel as part of a team was always this focus on doing things that didn't necessarily benefit him, right then, right from the start. It was to benefit the greater good, which was, the family at that time. And how different was it when you went to, well, first, how did Iowa find you? Because then I want to talk about going from 9-man to 11-man. That had to be kind of weird walking on the field the first time, but who found you there in Ferentz, South Dakota?
It's a great story. I mean, so I was basically very, very lightly recruited. And I think it's the power of team, too. This is really, I think, an important lesson for anybody who's part of a team, part of business, any sort of team, whether it's a family business or a big company. I had 7 seniors I played with from kindergarten up to senior year of high school. And I was the only one to play a snap of football beyond high school. My favorite sports memory, if you ask me any time in my life, it was my senior year after the state championship game with those 7 boys in that locker room, just in tears, knowing that was it. And we had done it. We had accomplished our goal, our lifelong goal to that point as 18-year-olds, to say we want to win, we want to finish as champions. And to do it together as buddies who, from kindergarten to 7th grade to 8th grade, all the way through high school, we played football on recess and played, all through the winter. We're playing football, and we loved it. And to go end on top was amazing. But a former Iowa player, Mr. LaFleur, from just over the border in South Dakota, I think it's in Jefferson, South Dakota, watched me play that state championship game. So he watches me. So without my high school team, those guys that never played another snap, they helped me get to that game. I play that game. One person, the right person, watches the game, calls Coach Ferentz and says, have you seen this kid? And they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't recruit 9-man football in South Dakota. Not a surprise. I hadn't gone to any camps. I'd never gone out recruiting.
And Huddle didn't exist at that time, all the videos.
Yeah, you don't have all the highlight tapes. You have none of that stuff. You know, social media.
Yep.
And he reaches out, and Coach Ferentz, then they send out Reese Morgan. A few weeks later, send up Reese Morgan. I send a highlight tape, so I dubbed a VHS tape over a bunch of study halls, send it down to Iowa. They send up Reese Morgan. He walks into our school, kind of gives me the once-over, shakes my hand, talks to my high school coach, football coach, who's also the track coach, kind of gave me some track times and stuff, and realized I could run, and I was bigger than they expected, and all those good things. And I got invited down to Iowa City then a few weeks later, and I got to end up getting a scholarship offer. And that was my only scholarship. That was my only offer I had coming out of high school at the Division I level. And obviously, I'm a broke farm kid. I took it because it was free education. And like any good farmer, you take whatever for free. And it was the best opportunity, quite honestly. And I didn't realize how lucky I was, because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And turns out that I'm going to play for one of the greatest college football coaches of all time. I'm going to work under one of the greatest strength coaches in strength coach history, in Chris Doyle. I'm going to have an opportunity to play for one of the best defensive coordinators in the history of football, in Norm Parker. And I knew none of this when I went there, and I learned real quickly that they also give everybody a chance. Walk-ons, small-town recruits. It doesn't matter how big a recruit you are. It's like, can you help us win? And it was just pretty amazing to see that dynamic and culture they were setting forth as a young person in Iowa City.
For those of you who don't know, Reese Morgan retired probably 3-4 years ago, and he was my business partner, Ross Junge. Reese was his high school football coach at Benton Community, and then we watched him go to Iowa City West or High, and then he ended up at Iowa. And if you're a Hawkeye football fan, you know how many great diamonds in the roughs Reese Morgan found over the years, believed in people, gave them that vision. And
I got to cut you off. My best Reese Morgan story during recruiting. Of course, small town South Dakota. There's not many of us that got recruited back then to go to play Division I. So he was coming to watch a basketball game later on that winter after our football season. And everybody knew that I was being recruited by them. Well, Reese is going down I-90 between Sioux Falls and I was actually playing in the Corn Palace in Mitchell, South Dakota, which is right next door to basically
Corn Palace. There you go.
Yep, in the Corn Palace. That's the town next to us. And Reese is flying down I-90, going way too fast. He gets pulled over by a highway patrolman. Says, "Why are you going so fast?" Well, he's like, "I'm late to Chad Greenway's basketball game. We're recruiting Chad." He gets a police escort to the Corn Palace. Now, again, this is a Reese Morgan story, so you only believe 60% of it, but he gets a police escort to the game, right to the front door, parks his car, comes in and watches me play because everybody was so excited that I was getting recruited at that level. They want to do anything it took to get me there. And it was pretty cool story. Again, I'm not to this day, he's bound that happened, but I still don't know.
I would agree with probably that happening. What a great individual. I called him one time when I was coaching flag football just to get his opinion on when you should move from flag to tackle. He didn't know me. I just saw the number on the Iowa football website. He called me from a recruiting trip in Florida to say, "Ed, here's my thoughts." And I thought, holy cow, this guy just took time to return, someone that loves football, but to help these kids. Great person. Now, you'd mentioned one of the greatest coaches of all time. I think it's in the next game or two, potentially, Kirk Ferentz becomes the all-time winningest coach in the Big Ten, or I saw something come across the screen there. Tell us a little bit about what it was like going to Iowa, going from 9 to 11 that first time. Was there fear or inferiority complex of do I belong? Tell us that. And then tell us Kirk's always known for just being humble. He had a great humbling moment for you early in your career, but tell us about that journey at Iowa and making that jump, and how did you get past maybe some of the mental noise in your head of do I belong here?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great point. So Coach Ferentz is just a special human. He's just a guy. I always want to make my dad proud, right? There's nothing more that I wanted than to make him proud of the type of kid I was, the type of athlete I was, how hard I worked. My dad is my hero. My parents are my heroes and mentors. And think of Coach as like that next extension of that. Because when I met him, he has such a way of doing things and a calmness about him, an expectation that he has for the people around him. And that's why I recruited you, is because I expect you to be great, and you can be great. And here's how you're going to be great. And I'm going to give you all the tools. And you just want to make him proud. You want to do right by him because he consistently makes the right decisions and does the right things by himself, by the university, by his kids that he's coaching. He's just tremendous, and I have so much respect for him in so many different ways, as a father, as a coach, as a husband, as a leader, and how he goes about his business, and just his consistency at which he does it is just staggering. And you just know what you're going to get. And, I think the first time I really was around him and around practice, obviously he's an offensive coach, but just the expectation of what he expected from his kids was tremendous, and you wanted to live up to it, and you wanted to do it. And so my first time playing 11-man football, I go in there, I actually played quarterback first, which was crazy. I was a quarterback. I played quarterback for about 18 minutes of practice, and then they moved me to safety, and I was 200 pounds. And about 6 months later, they say, "You're going to play linebacker." I'm like, "Yes, sir. I'll play linebacker, whatever it takes." That was actually Brett Bielema, who's now the coach at Illinois. And, I think Coach Ferentz is going to potentially tie the record this weekend, or maybe he has one more week left to tie or break the record. But it goes to show you that consistency and being the same person and building relationships and doing what you say and having integrity and doing it over a long period of time gets you to a place where you're the all-time winningest coach in history of the Big Ten. And that's crazy to think, but he's done it the right way. And I think this can kind of serve as the best example of just what he expected. I mean, I went there as a nobody recruit. I had worked my way up to the starting lineup my sophomore year after an ACL recovery and kind of going through some ups and downs. I redshirted, put on 35 pounds of muscle with Coach Doyle and the strength program there, which is just incredible. Can't say enough good things about that. And I'm starting my fifth start. We're at Ohio State in Columbus, just an impossible place to go win. And this story is a story of humility, but really about being humbled. And we all can search out or find things in our life where we're like, yeah, that was a mistake. I got called out on it. How do I respond? And this is the best example of my career that really changed the course of probably my life, but certainly how I look at things and think about things. So we play the game at Ohio State. We lose 19-10, and we played really good defensively. Offensively, we really struggled in that environment. Special teams gave up some really bad field position. So a reporter, after the game, you take your pads off. You get about 10 minutes before the reporters come in, take your pads off, kind of cool down a little bit, unwind, and all of a sudden reporters come in. And I'm a young, dumb kid. And keep in mind, I had done head down, worked hard, done everything asked of me up to this point, had become a leader on the team. Essentially, I embodied break the rock and be an Iowa Hawkeye under Coach Ferentz. With the Dallas Clarks and the Robert Galleries and the Bruce Nelsons and all these excellent guys who came before me, I was in line with that. And the reporter asked me, he's like, Chad, what more could you have done defensively? Man, you guys played so well. Defensively, here was your stats. You only gave up this many yards. We held them out of the end zone. I think we only gave up 3 field goals that game. Defensively, maybe 4. And what more could you guys have done? And he just led me in. It's like, you know what? Defensively, we played really well. Not much more you can ask of us. I mean, at the end of the day, like these, offense can't give up the they can't give up the pick 6. Special teams can't give up the field position. We got to be better on special teams. Like, I kind of had this opinion of my teammates and these other sectors of the game that I didn't necessarily affect, although I was on some special teams. And I give this quote, and I come in the next day and to practice, and after, win, lose, or draw, you're coming in the next day and you're going to have a meeting, and it's going to be a team meeting, and you're going to break it up into defensive and then on to position groups. And the very first thing that we see in the team meeting, lights go down, screens pop on, and boom, my quote on these 2 massive screens in front of the entire team, all the coaches. And just,
you're shrinking in that chair, aren't you now?
Yeah, I mean, just awful. Like, you can't hide because you did the thing you can't do, which is throw your teammates that you love and adore under the bus for really no other reason to make yourself and your defense feel better, right? That, well, it's not on us. Gosh, it must be on these guys. And you're a finger pointer. And the thing is, I'd never been that in my life. So I kind of had built up this trust and respect amongst my peers that they probably knew I didn't mean it, but I was at a point there where I had to come to grips with that's reality. I said that and I had to own it. And there's 2 things. So the next thing that Coach Ferentz did, just to drive it home, was, because in my quote I said there's nothing more we could have done to win that game. He goes on to show 10 to 15 clips of my game, personally me, where I made a mistake, missed a tackle, missed assignment, miscommunication, whatever it is, missed tackle. And the lesson is what? You could always do more. There's always something else. No matter how good you think your yard looks, there's always something else you can do to mow your own lawn, to take care of yourself, to watch film, to play and try to play a perfect game, which, by the way, never has happened in life, ever. Nobody's played the perfect game. So there's always something to improve on, and you better constantly be seeking that. And when you get confronted with this idea that, you played really well. Yeah, but I could have done this better, or defensively could have done that better. And the next thing I took from that lesson, I think back on it, I didn't have the perspective really then, is we get this in life, is we get to respond. We can make a mistake, we can have success, we can drop the ball, but we get to respond. And I get to respond to my teammates, because I could have crawled under a rock and said, no, he misquoted me. I didn't say that. It was this. I could run from it. I could say, that's me. That's on me. I said it. I don't think that way. I said it. I got to own it and move on. I had built up that trust and rapport with my teammates that it didn't throw my career off. It didn't throw how people thought of me off, but it made them pause. And it certainly made me pause to realize that what you say matters. When you're part of a team, what you say matters, and how you react and respond matters. And to learn that lesson as a 20-year-old kid, to go on, to eventually, for me to play in the NFL, it was just a lesson learned at the right time that has served me in life from that moment. And there's these moments in life where I think you can kind of all reflect and say, yeah, I got to learn from that and be better. And that was certainly one for me.
So I hope everyone was taking notes there. I've had the pleasure of meeting Coach Ferentz as well as Coach Campbell here at Iowa State. So when this drops, it'll be probably midway through the season. And just the state of Iowa is lucky to have great coaches. But everything he just said about Coach Ferentz is true with the consistency, and you know what you are going to get. And I've always found it interesting, Chad, whenever I've been seated at a table with him, he actually takes notes when you're talking and your name, and he has an unbelievable, memory and just making you feel important. But what Chad said there is you can always do more. Take care of yourself. What you say matters, and at all times people are watching you. And I think about the direction you could have taken there is been mad, defensive, called your parents and said, okay, coach threw me under the bus, screw this. If we'd been in the NIL era, I'm transferring, I'm leaving. I can't believe he did that. And actually, I know what your dad would have said.
Oh.
You would have been more afraid to tell your dad what just – yeah. He would have drove down there, smacked you up the head, took you by the cup of the neck, and brought you into Coach Ferentz's office to say, thank you, and may I have another.
Yes, exactly.
On that. Tell me a little bit then, when you go to the Vikings, because you had mentioned consistency a couple times, and – by the way, Chad is a phenomenal speaker. I've heard him speak a couple different times. And so, hopefully if those of you are listening to this, we're going to put in the notes section afterwards Chad's website, because it's been one of the couple times I've heard it, some of the best talks, that I've heard. So make sure you're liking and commenting on this, but also seeing the stuff we're putting in there about Chad. But you said in the NFL, 3 inches mattered, 6 inches matter. You talked about playing linebacker. You get drafted. I'm trying to, what number were you in that first round?
17th.
17th. So, high expectations. You go to a great team. And now, though, everyone is good, on there. And you talked about the film study where a 3-inch step when it should have been 5 made the difference. Talk a little bit about consistency and what you had to do day to day to stay relevant, because you were a very good athlete, but at that level, there's unworldly athletes as well too. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's also just to kind of go backwards a little bit to talk about expectations. And what I mean by that is, you come out of a 9-man small town and nobody, you're the underdog. You have this chip on your shoulder to say, hey, I'm going to go prove to people that I'm better than they think I am. Underdog mentality, underdog story. We all kind of carry some of that in our own way. And I always think mentally.
And the whole city, the whole town was watching you too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted you to succeed. This is the first one from the hometown.
Yeah. Your whole town, the whole state, right? You're the only Division I athlete going to play football in the state of South Dakota. You have these expectations. But at the same time, I carried that, and I didn't talk about this, and you brought it up, but I should have mentioned the one emotion I really felt going to Iowa City, and it's an emotion no man wants to talk about, is I was scared. I was fearful of failure. And I always think that fear is one of the most driving forces, driving you either towards your goal or driving you away from your goal. It can paralyze you or you can motivate you. And to me, that fear became a massive chip on my shoulder to go prove to you that I will make it one way or another, come hell or high water. And we talk about consistency. I was going to consistently show up and give you my best because I knew that's what it was going to take for me to make it. And that chip on my shoulder, that guy talking to me every morning was like, you better get up and get it because somebody else is going to. Now, you can't guarantee you're going to be good enough, but you give yourself the best shot. And usually, like we all talk about, is you're going to end up in a place where you're in a pretty good spot. But now you fast forward, you go through your college career, you go from a nobody to a somebody, you get drafted in the first round, and now the expectation is what? Oh boy, you better be good because we're paying you a lot of money to be good.
Yep.
If you're not good, we're going to talk a bunch of smack about you in the media and the paper, and then we're going to get rid of you and find somebody better to do it. And so again, what do you lean into? You lean into that motivation of self to say, where's that chip on my shoulder? I'm going to go prove to them now that I am who they thought I was when they drafted me. But when it comes with expectations, like you better be good. Sometimes I think people overreact and say, okay, I got to go become somebody completely different. Well, that's not what got you there. What got you there? What got you there was doing the same thing as hard as you can day after day after day. And listen, even in college, was I physically better than most? Probably, right? Athletically, I was pretty gifted and could run and could hit, do these good things. So, but now all of a sudden, what's going to separate me in the NFL? What separates you in the NFL are the things that take no talent. Everybody's talented. So it's like you talked about work ethic. You say, yeah, I'm a hard worker. Well, congratulations. Guess what? That is the minimum requirement to be good, is being a hard worker. Like, you sure as hell better be a hard worker. Otherwise, you're not going to be there long. Like, so congratulations, you're a hard worker. But what else are you doing to be good? Are you turning over every rock to figure out what you can be better at? Right? Are you finding creative ways to improve yourself? Are you educating yourself in different ways of things you didn't know? You talk about the NFL. How I separated myself was I'm going to show up and do things that take no talent. I'm going to have a great attitude, simple, right? I'm going to be enthusiastic about what I do, no matter if I'm watching film, no matter what, if I'm showing up at a 6 a.m. lift, how do I show up matters. And then I got to turn over every rock. Like, I get chewed out for making a mistake or doing something. I got to own it, learn, and not do it again. I got to turn over every rock in film study. I have to be exact in my preparation when it comes down to alignment and assignment. Like, I can't make mistakes because I'm not physically better than these guys. I have to find an advantage. And then as you get longer in the tooth in the NFL, it gets even a bigger emphasis on you better find another way to win, because you're not going to be faster than these guys or bigger or stronger than these guys. These guys are freaks, right? So how do you win? And the word of the day when it comes to sports, life, business is accountability. Accountability to self first is, are you really trying to seek out a better Chad Greenway? Are you really doing what it takes? And like I do self-growth things all the time. And really when it comes down to my talk, I try to give the most is about self-growth. I don't care if you've been in the business for 40 years and you think you know it all. Guess what? You don't. And as soon as you think you do know it all is when you stop growing and when somebody passes you up in whatever business or industry you're in. And we stop growing because we think we know all the answers and we don't have somebody in our ear saying, what about this? What about that? And, luckily in football, you have a coach, right? You have a coach saying, hey, look at it this way. Look at it that way. Here's a mistake. But again, we choose the response. Am I going to get defensive, abrasive, say, I know it all, I'm a pro? Are you kidding me? I've been in the league 5-6 years. What can you tell me? It's like with realities, as soon as you have that mentality, you stop growing. So you talk about consistency. Even at the highest league, it's hard to show up day after day after day, week 12, week 14, week 16. You're injured, you're banged up, you're hurt. You got to go get that lift in at 6 a.m. because you have to start preparing for the next week. And guess what? The Lions are coming to town or whoever you're playing. And you need to be your best because that guy behind you wants your job and he wants the money you're making. So that ability to show up day after day in life in general and be consistent. I don't care if it's a workout plan. I don't care if it's it's about being a dad or a husband. That ability is a rare ability. And some guys can do it for a week. Some guys can do it for 10 days, 20 days, a month. Can you do it year after year after year after stacking days after stacking days after stacking days? It's monotonous. It's a grind. But the best people, you think about the most successful people in your life, are able to do that and be consistent with it. Almost to the point of like, man, he must be crazy. It's like, yeah, I'm crazy, dedicated about trying to figure out a way to get better.
As you were talking, I was thinking of a couple different things. Ben Newman, the great performance coach, talks about stacking days. And I just heard you say that. And stacking days leads to stacking weeks, leads to stacking months, to years. That consistency. Hopefully everyone wrote down, do the things that don't take any talent, like showing up early. If the job you're at says, it's an 8 to 5 job, it's okay, I'm going to be there at 7:30. It's not going out late the night before. It's volunteering for projects.
Think about enthusiasm too. Like, how do you show up?
Yeah.
So if you show up, like, well, what kind of mentality you have? Like, what kind of energy you bring into the room? What kind of energy you bring into the meeting? Like, that stuff really matters. That 6 a.m. lift when nobody wants to be there, you get to choose and dictate how you show up to that. And it's one thing to be there. But that's not leadership. That's just doing what you're supposed to do. Doing what you're supposed to do is showing up there and doing it and going through the motions and getting it done. That's not leadership. Leadership is bringing energy to a room that needs it. Leadership is saying something important that needs to be said at that moment and putting yourself out there in a moment where you say, this is going to be uncomfortable, but it needs to be said. And then holding yourself to a standard, whereas if somebody says something to you, you have to respond accordingly. Like, you know what? You're right. You're right. I preach this day after day and I'm falling short. Thank you for checking my back, because that's where I get better.
Those are the true sayers in your life and the coaches. And I think for the business owners out there, you know, how do you create that environment to negate complacency? Because in Chad's world, it was the draft every year. You know, it was the person that wanted your job. And I remember you talking about, there's one year you had an injury and they drafted someone, or you gave this story, like, you're like, holy cow, this is different. I have the two Pro Bowls, but that was previous. And so you had some things that were there in the NFL that a lot of times don't exist elsewhere. Talk about how it felt when they were drafting behind you, and maybe you get a little step slower, you know, you start thinking through that. And then if you do remember, you had said something about Percy Harvin, that the first time you saw him where you're like, what was that?
Yeah.
And he was just so much better that you're starting to see that. But talk a little bit about the mental challenges of, you know, later on in your career.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things, just to speak on the Percy argument, there's certain things when you play football for a long time, and even in the NFL at the highest level, even at that level, the 1% of the 1%ers show up. And like Adrian Peterson, Steve Hutchinson's, Percy Harvin's, these guys that when Percy grabbed the ball and went for his first 10 yards, I'm like, it's like the first time seeing a Tesla go full speed off the green light. You're like, what was that? I've never seen that before. Like, your eyes have to adjust. And that was, you see these things in the NFL world sometimes, right? You're like, that was different and unique. And I've seen a lot of really good people. So this is special. And again, to speak on Percy, since you brought him up, I'm a big believer in purpose and motivations, and Percy's primary motivation was to make money and get contracts. And I can tell you that didn't work out well for him, because what he ran up against was, when he was abrasive to people that could actually do that for him, he wanted it now, he wanted it his way. Well, his motivation wasn't pure on really being purpose-driven towards wanting to win a Super Bowl or being team-oriented, or he had more selfish, intrinsic values, and he couldn't push them aside. Now, he was a great teammate to us, but he didn't understand that, like, if you have to play this game and play the long game, if you do that, you're going to get all the chips. You're going to get all the chips, man. You're the most talented dude here. But just push aside that ego just for a second and just be a part of this bigger thing than yourself. And again, he has a 6-7 year career when he should have been a 12-year career first ballot Hall of Famer with his ability, but his ability to match up with his purpose and doing those small little things, show up for the team. You know, he didn't want to do. It just wasn't how he's built. So I think the best way to equate like that accountability to self that I talked about is like, it's interesting when you talk about it, but then all of a sudden you're the one in that conversation. Now it's you. Are you going to do what you say? I just finished my 8th year. The story you're mentioning, I just finished my 8th year in the NFL. So I seen it all, right? I'm 30 years old, played a bunch of years, had some success. And I had just played through a year where I'd broken two bones in my wrist, the end of my radius and another bone in my wrist. I played through that thing for like 8 to 10 weeks. It never healed up until after the season. I'm playing with the split during the practice week, never missing a practice, tapering up for games, just gritting my toughing through it, because there's this young buck behind me that he wanted the gig. He wanted the job. And I'm like, nah, I ain't giving him a shot. I'm not going to go sit over there, because my best ability in the league was availability. I just kept showing up and being myself. They could always expect me to be myself, and they knew what I would give them. I might have not have been the best player in the league, but they knew I was going to be good to really good every Sunday. Every week I'd be there. So I wanted to give that to them. If I say I'm going to check out for a month, give this guy a shot, heal up, all of a sudden I'm on the chopping block. Well, turns out after that year, I played through this injury. Mike Zimmer comes in as a new coach. Didn't have any rapport with him. You know, he talks to the GM. My first call in that offseason was from my agent saying, well, they want you to take a pay cut. They don't think you are what you were before. And they had 3 years left in my deal. And the interesting part about that was I just finished another what I thought was a Pro Bowl type season. and you just smacks in the face, and you realize it just doesn't matter because the business side will always be the business side. So I go home and tell my wife, and I was like, okay, listen, 8 years in, I played through this injury. She sees the other side of it, right? I'm coming home beaten up, kind of talking about, the experience and what she sees me deal with this week to week. She sees me tape it up and go play, come home, try to hold your kids. You can't with your right arm, but you're still out there playing for the team. And all of a sudden the team says, you know what, we don't think you're valuable anymore, or as valuable as you does on paper with your contract. She's hot. I'm hot. You have an emotional moment where you're like, you think selfish thoughts because, well, wait a second, I've given them everything.
Yep.
But I got to choose how I responded. And after some time to calm down and come and make some realizations and say, you know what, I am 30. Nobody's going to love me more than the Vikings. And they guaranteed me some dollars. I got through those next 2 years. I earned the respect of Coach Zimmer. Became a captain for him for my last 3 years.
Oh wow!
One of my favorite quotes, and it's about me. But it wasn't necessarily about me. It was about my purpose through those last 3 years. Was to make him realize that him asking me to take a pay cut when he came in was a mistake. Was when he said when I went to retire, it's like we had 53 Chad Greenways, we win every year, and I made him a believer in that short amount of time, and not with words, right? With action, with showing him how good of a player and leader I was. After him offending me, saying, we don't think you're good enough anymore, we're going to take some money from you, I got to respond. I'll say, I'll take less, but I'm still going to show you. And I was rewarded with that mentality, not because of look at me, but it was more of a look at myself to say, okay, who am I? How do I want to end this thing? How do I want to be known for? I want to be known as a loyal guy that stuck it out, that figured out a way to stay a Viking for life, end my career on my terms. And that was really important to me. And I got to choose. And after those next 2 years of my deal, my last 2 years of my deal was up, and they said, okay, we want you for one more year, my 11th year. New contract. I asked for the exact dollar amount that they had taken from me the previous 2 years. Again, it's money. It's the terms that were negotiated. But for me, it meant that I held up my end. Like when I shake your hand in Mumford in South Dakota, I'm going to mean what I say. I'm going to do what I tell you I'm going to do. And that's important. And I signed that 11th year, and I played out my full deal, made every dollar of that deal, and they held up their end. I held up my end, and I was done. 11 years, and I was out. And it just shows you that sometimes you are the one put in the crosshairs to say, okay, how are you going to respond? And I responded with saying, you know what? I'm not what I once was, but I'm sure as heck going to go prove to these guys that I'm capable of helping this football team and proving that I can be a leader of this football team, and double back and say, what more can I do? How much better can I get? Then all of a sudden in year 9, I'm learning all 3 linebacker positions rather than one, because how can I bring value now differently than I did 5 years ago? Now I'm a leader. I'm a voice. Right now I'm playing middle linebacker. Never played that before. Well, that's what we needed. So that's what I did. But don't take set your ego aside. Well, wait a second. I play outside linebacker. What do you mean? I'm not going to go play middle. Well, now you're just taking away, right? Because it's about you. I think that's a really important lesson. And I'm glad I responded. Yeah. Looking back now, I'm really glad I responded the way I did.
So a couple of things there that were so awesome is just mentioning other players' ability did not match with the purpose. And you heard Chad talk about his ability did match his purpose. And then being available is a huge component to any business owner, any sports team, any marriage, any parenting. It's being available. And, with parenting, for those of you should connect to Chad on LinkedIn as well, too. And right up top in there, it says, husband to the great and powerful Jenny Greenway, who was a track star herself at Iowa. And you have these 4 kids. So, you're doing the football, but also starting to parent, working this out with Jenny. Your daughter just committed to Kentucky basketball. She is a top 5 or top 10 recruit in the country on that. Tell me a little bit about Kenny Brooks, the coach at Kentucky. I've never met him, don't know him, but I'm more curious with the 40-plus offers that Maddyn had, why Kentucky, why Kenny Brooks? What attracted you and your wife that have been high performers your whole life? Your kids are high performers. What was the attraction there for your family and your daughter?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a blessing to be a dad of 4 girls. I mean, first of all, she's now a senior, so 18, 15, 10, and 8. It's a complete grind. It's the best kind of grind you can have. Get to, and that's why I always say football. The best thing football gave to me was time to be a dad, time to be a husband, time to not have to run and do a 9 to 5 and miss events because of meetings and work and travel. So I'm very blessed in that way. And because of that, I've gotten to be a huge part of their careers and life in the sports world. And they're soccer, track, and basketball athletes. Basketball is the primary for the older two, at least to this point. And Maddyn, yes, Maddyn's had a nice, fun run. It's been a crazy excitement, so much success in high school, from track, soccer, and certainly basketball. To put herself in a position to be on the U19 national basketball team this year and win a gold medal over in the Czech Republic this summer, just incredible opportunities, and met some great people. And along the way through the recruiting journey, so many great opportunities. Obviously, University of Iowa, most notably, right? I mean, this is a university that she's known and adored since she was basically born. My wife and I both went there. My wife was a walk-on track athlete, ended up being a 2-time track captain. Obviously, that was my one offer to go to Iowa City. So we met there. It's a huge part of our life in our story. And obviously, that became kind of the crosshairs of Maddyn's recruitment was, the Iowa offer. Eventually, she got that, right? But she got offers from a bunch of different programs. And as parents, you realize that you need to go out there and show her the world and just see what opportunities were there. And I think, like anything, we talk about Coach Kenny Brooks, and this is not an indictment on any other university. I think when you make big decisions in life, you should make them based off of relationships and connectivity in that way. And Coach Brooks just related and connected to Maddyn in a really positive way, especially being a point guard first coach. Obviously, the draw to other schools was strong, but it was interesting. Maddyn really wanted to forge her own path, and there's so many Hawkeye fans on here, and she got offered by Iowa State and had a chance to stay home here in Minnesota, and so many others, Stanford and Duke, and all these great programs. But she really wanted to forge her own path, and as Hawkeyes, that was hard. But at the same time, you got to do what is best for your kid and what she thinks she wants to do. And when I met Coach Brooks and his staff, it became very apparent to me they were a special group, very unique, very motivated to get Maddyn on campus and do right by her, create an opportunity for her right away to go on and impact the team and the university. And they have done, as far as integrity goes, they have done, and everything they've ever said to her has happened. And more than anything, just build that trust and relationship. And Coach Brooks has done that. And knowing that this isn't going to be our journey, it's going to be Maddyn's journey. So that relationship has to be built with her and not us. And in a very transactional world of college sports, that is still very, very unique. And we want to go to a place where that was more transformational leadership rather than transactional. And Coach Brooks seems to really have that. So we're very excited for Maddyn to start there next year. Obviously, we're trying to enjoy her senior year and the last remaining time we have her in our house, which is crazy and fleeting, certainly. But it's going to be a fun year.
What's interesting is I heard you talk about that. If I was, running a business, I would take what Chad just said there, because all intents and purposes would have led Maddyn to Iowa. And Coach Brooks could have taken the easy route and said, well, there's plenty of kids to go recruit. That one's probably going to be heading here. Look at the relationships. Look at this. Great programs in the Midwest, even the hometown, Gophers and coaches and things, and said, no, that's who we want. Let's put our best foot forward. Let's be authentic. Let's be real. Probably did research on Chad and Jenny, knowing authenticity and relationship is what's going to drive this decision. And if we can get time to show who we are, then at least we're going to be in the ball game. Yep. And that's all that's all you hope for, is getting an opportunity. How did you balance, last question here, because I heard Trent Dilfer talk, and his girls have been very successful as well. And he talked about his dad hat and his coach hat.
Yeah.
Were you ever coaching, or were you always dad, or how did you navigate when they needed dad or they needed mom versus driven Chad and Jenny?
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard balance, because Jenny and I are both very motivated and aggressive, and we're driven and we have high expectations because we think you should put your best foot forward always. So it really starts with effort. Just a big believer in effort and consistency in doing that every day. And again, just kind of in lieu of my career, it's like that can get you to a place where you're going to have a chance to have success. And then when talent can meet that, right, and opportunity is really important. So it's a hard balance. We we try to lead by example in our house, but as parents. But then at the same time, when I retired, I basically became their trainer. I loved high school basketball. I loved everything about it. I wanted to play basketball in college. Football was a better opportunity. So when I got a chance to be down with football, have all these girls, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to have any football players. So I'm going to coach basketball and teach myself how to teach other kids to play. Because you think, I played hoops, man. It's no big deal. Well, okay, then go coach a third grader on what a jump stop, pivot, reverse pivot, all the rules of basketball. It's really hard to teach this game because there's so many rules that don't come naturally to people. And these kids don't grow up playing in the park like we did. It just, they don't do it. The pickup game doesn't exist anymore almost, which is sad. But so I kind of took to, when Maddyn was in third grade, to start training her and then develop her love for the game. And that balance is really fine because you can push too hard. We're also, I don't want to go down with Dad. He's crazy. I don't want to go work with him in the driveway. He's nuts. You had to make it fun and make it repetitive where like we make it a game. We make it a competition. Can you beat Dad? Can you do this? Now, can you beat your sister? Can you beat your mom? All these things to make it fun for them. And then when she started to walk into gyms when she's like 4th, 5th grade, and I'm walking into to coach her, I coached her up until 7th grade. It was interesting because everybody's perspective was like, well, that's her dad. So like, she better be good. And I think that she felt that a little. She felt that with the expectations, which wasn't fair to her either, right? But she developed her own love for that game and her own competitive spirit within that game, where she's like, well, this is me now. This has nothing to do with my dad. And she really took offense to, in a lot of cases, that like she had in some way her pathway paved because I was her dad. And then we all know in life, in sports, that really has nothing to do with it. You got to go out and perform.
Yeah.
And she's done that in spades, every opportunity she's gotten. And then she grew and developed her love. And I can honestly say I coached all the girls essentially during the winter season up until 7th grade. And then we hand them over to our high school program here in Minnesota. You can play as a middle schooler in high school. So we have an incredibly good high school coach who works on, just personal growth and development, but also obviously skill development. And has done a really nice job with them. Their AU club has been great. And we also have the ability, because of the school we go to play 3 sports. So they're playing multi-sports year-round, where they're not just hyper-focused on one. And I think that's where growth in college really comes from, is when you haven't put your sole focus every day on growing in one sport. You're playing soccer, then you're running track, and you're playing hoops. Like, you're doing all these things. Now all of a sudden, you go to college and you focus on one thing. Hoops, getting stronger for hoops, developing your game. Now you still have this window to grow, where a lot of kids, that window's closed because you've only done that your whole life. You've been one-dimensional, one sport, one athlete type of athlete. I think your growth period is sort of closed or closing compared to somebody who's played multi-sport. So that's just the approach we've taken. It doesn't determine success at the next level. It doesn't determine anything other than opportunity at the next level, which is what she's gotten. And now it's going to be up to her when she gets on campus to go open up that next stage.
See, and that was awesome, where the potential or her high-end limit is still there, because I did read a little bit about her and just the things that you've done, and she's never really focused on basketball other than when it was in season and doing the drills. And I did see an interview with your coach when you said he was a great coach, and this is where just is good to be humble, because they were asking about the success in the state championships, and he said, well, it doesn't hurt that we have one of the best players in the country as our point guard, and he did that laugh or the smile of saying, yeah, I'm probably decent at coaching, but I got some really good players too. And I really appreciated that, because he wasn't making it about him, and it was fun to see. Well, I could talk to you just all day, Chad. You're a true pleasure. This has been so fun. We didn't even get to Kevin O'Connell and some of the other things into, so we'll save that. The Vikings head coach and some of his skills. We'll save that for another episode. That's all for now. Appreciate everyone joining in to this episode of Led Leadership with Ed. And Chad, just best of luck to you and your family and all your other business endeavors. Again, we're going to put Chad's contact information in the chat so that you can reach out to him as speaker. You got a little glimpse into the intensity and the messaging that actually fits for everyone regardless. So you're a true pleasure, Chad. I appreciate you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Let's do this again sometime. We'll cover the rest of these bases.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.